You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's January, and we got all this to talk about.
Not that I'm pissy.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Hunters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
Yeah, we are a part of the Albera Podcast Network. Locally grown, community supported. It's Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty, our second show of 2022. My mom's birthday is coming up on Saturday, so happy early birthday to her. I ended up baking her a cake the other day, Ty. So I share this photo online. Apparently, I need to hire my wife as a personal photographer.
It's all about angles.
Exactly. She's got talent with composition and angles, and she made me look like I lost about 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm. You looked good. Not as good as the cake, but that's because that cake had caramel on it, and I'm a sucker for caramel. So
if I would have known that people were just going to make comments about that, I would have washed my hair and styled my beard, but
no, you wouldn't have.
That's a good point.
You're married. Like, you and Grant Biebrick just don't care what you look like when you go outside when it's cold. Like, you have no shame.
Well, then if I put nice scented stuff in my beard, my wife says, "Who are you trying to impress?" All
exactly.
Right.
And it's usually you usually only do that if I'm coming to town.
So, full disclosure, I have lost some weight, but I don't look as good as the picture. So, my wife and I decided...
Don't worry, I found it.
You found it? Oh, my weight? Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I found it. Yeah. Taking care of it for you for a bit.
And she said, "Man, you got to get to work to look like the picture." So, my shortbread cookies for breakfast today, not a good start. But...
I had sugar cookies and 2 bottles of Coke, so
I didn't have
not
the Coke,
that much
so
better.
Maybe I'm ahead of you there.
Maybe.
Hey, my theory is we're a month past Christmas. It's time to get the sugar out of the house. So
impossible.
It just keeps coming back in.
Yeah, it's like a cockroach.
I don't know how it works.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the 2 and Out podcast.
With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout-out to Your Forest, a podcast about the natural world. Hear stories about the environment, renewable resources, conservation, forestry, hunting, fishing, and more. This is a podcast for those who can't live without the joys and wonders of all wild things. Find Your Forest wherever you get your podcasts or at yourforestpodcast.com. That's yourforestpodcast.com. All right, we got a laundry list of items to get through on the show. We'll start with Hall of Famer, CFL legend Don Sutherland, passing away a couple of weeks ago, 85 years old, won 4 Grey Cups in the 60s, became a coach after that. Didn't want to do the show without mentioning Don Sutherland. I love those days, Ty, like guys that were playing defensive back and kicker at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like Chris Jones might be doing some of that stuff now that he's back in Edmonton.
Yeah, except back then they did it out of necessity. Yeah. Now it's just because he's an idiot.
Yeah, roster sizes of about 27 people.
Yeah, don't forget that Southern was a Steeler as well. I mean, that's worth noting.
Back in Ty's glory days in the late 50s.
Yeah. When the NFL was like barely a thing.
Oh, when football players were football players. No offense to the current players, but back then, whoa.
Yeah, that was a different game.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, clotheslines and DDTs were encouraged back then.
Yeah, I watched the 30 for 30 on the Raiders.
Yeah.
My God.
That's good stuff. Okay. I already mentioned Chris Jones. We might as well make this a Turf District episode, just like our friends, well, at least up the QE2 from me, east on Highway 16 from you, where you're currently recording. Also a part of the Alberta Podcast Network and Canadian Football Podcast Network.
They're west of me.
West of us. They're west of us no matter where you are. And
yeah, they're not east of me. They're west of me.
Oh, yeah. Man, I thought it was a west of us joke.
I am at home, Travis.
You are at home. And even if you were at work, they would be south of you. So let's just move along here. We knew Chris Jones was going to make news.
Mm-hmm. And whether it be good or bad.
That's true. He's already been molding this roster. And he's been grabbing players that are familiar to him. And
question.
What?
Is he molding this roster in 2022 or 2017?
Hey, if this is 2017 or 15 or 14, this team, you might as well guarantee him a Grey Cup.
Or at least the host in the West Final.
Yeah, exactly. So they have extended Jordan Hoover, who has been there already in Edmonton, Canadian member of the secondary. They make a trade. Mike Moore off to Montreal in return for offensive lineman Tony Washington, who was formerly in Edmonton, a Grey Cup champ in 2015. Now, also re-upping some Canadian receivers in Tavon Smith and Mike Jones. Mike Jones ended up surprising a few people last season, but I think Hamilton fans knew, hey, that guy can make plays, and sometimes he was the only receiver making plays.
And we had mentioned that as well. He was so buried down the depth chart, being the third, fourth, fifth look in any number of plays and play sets that it was hard for him to put up a lot of numbers, but we kind of knew what he could do because every now and then he would absolutely burn defenders.
James Wilder Jr. returning to Edmonton for another season. Just the way that
vaccinated.
Last year ended, I wondered if he was not going to be back and they were going to move forward with Walter Fletcher. So that kind of surprised me.
Mm-hmm. And every player in camp will be vaccinated now because James Wilder Jr. now is his first shot. So, I mean, all those questions are out the window. As for, the drama and everything that would kind of surround this team last year, I don't know if that was just, with everything that was going on off the field.
Yeah.
Probably didn't help. So this year I think it'll be a little more structured and hopefully we don't have the disruptions like they did in 2021. And the numbers that James Wilder is putting up early in the season, if that would have carried through, it would have been absolutely wild the year he could have had.
He also ended up signing, Caleb Hawley, and then also two veteran receivers. One, Adarius Bowman, who has not played since 2018. He turns 37 in July. One, Manny Arsenault, who is a BC Lions legend. I think it's fair to call him that. Over 8,000 receiving yards. Yep. He turns 35 in September. Played in 2019, but ended up hurting his ACL or maybe that was coming back off the ACL with the Riders, and then didn't play in 2021, but he's going to be in Edmonton. What do you make of these signings? I think,
wild.
I think Jones likes his big receivers, and those guys kind of fit the bill, but I can't see both of them playing throughout all 2022.
Are they going to be playing DB? I know it's an old joke, and I've recycled it, but...
We can continue to recycle that because Jones has also been talking to Deron Carter.
Oh, my God. Okay, so my question is, after Arbuckle gets blindsided in week 1 and is knocked out for the first 6-7 weeks in concussion protocol because his left tackle probably let somebody through, who's going to throw them the ball?
This is fascinating, and I'm just glad Chris Jones is doing it. I want to watch this. Somehow,
it's a bad car wreck.
somehow he manages these big personalities. Guys want to play for him.
Does he, though?
Well, he did Duron Carter for about a year and a half, and then it kind of hit the fan, and he got released from Saskatchewan. So I'm kind of surprised that conversation is happening anyway.
Man, the two sports franchises in Edmonton that I follow the most have the last 2 weeks they've been so bad, but yet so good news-wise.
Yeah, exactly. It's January, and we got all this to talk about.
Not that I'm pissy.
You know, I will say this. The new president and CEO that the Elks signed, that seems like an absolute home run by this franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't know too much about Victor Cui before he was hired in Edmonton. But the CEO of, was it One Championship in Asia, one of the biggest mixed martial arts properties there? Born in Edmonton, understands what the team means to the city. He's already been asked things like, Are you willing to bring back Dwayne Mandrusiak? And he says, yeah, I will consider. We'll talk about bringing him back to complete his 50th season. I think that would go a long way to building trust in the fan base. And this guy, his resume is about a mile long. He's coming to Edmonton. The fact that they were able to bring him there, I think is amazing by this team. And he's got a big job ahead of him, of course. But this looks like the guy to do it.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, he's from Edmonton.
Yeah. And he's coming back for family. His dad's encountering some health issues right now and wants to surround his dad with love. It's almost like he wants to be there. And he's not.
The stars kind of aligned in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
He knows what this team means to the community and how big of a part of the community they have been. Like you said, and we've said it, that Mandrusiak thing was the beginning. That's where this all kind of started. And then it just snowballed. And he even said they're going to do their due diligence. They're not just going to blindly bring him back. Yeah. I'm sure they're going to make sure that, he didn't do something to warrant it. I highly doubt he did, but to warrant getting let go. And, if they are able to bring him back, like you said, it's going to start rebuilding trust. The fan base is going to see, maybe this guy kind of gets it. And I think he obviously does. So, good news for this team this early in the year and, kind of the new news cycle for 2022 is a very big positive sign.
Let's move to the champs where, just like 2019, some doubt that Winnipeg was going to be able to extend a lot of those key players, and here we are again. Of course they did. They extend Patrick Neufeld on the offensive line, the special teams ace, Mike Miller, Canadian.
He's the best special teamer in the CFL. Just ask Glenn Suter.
Yeah, absolutely. Canadian linebacker Jesse Briggs, one of the best linebackers, the most outstanding defensive player. Adam Bighill, the MOP, Zach Collaros, now the CFL's highest paid player, and offensive lineman Stanley Bryant. Wow. I think one of the big questions, obviously, is Andrew Harris. He is still not re-signed, and I think it's kind of up to him. He is going to decide, and I think as long as he's healthy, he can obviously still be effective in the CFL, especially behind that offensive line, and especially, the way that offense has been designed. But if he doesn't come back and they go with Brady Oliveira and Augustine,
they might have to, just with what Collaros is making.
That's kind of where I'm leaning, because he obviously highest paid player in the league, and they've got expensive players in Jefferson and Bighill, and that
offer had to come in at over $515,000.
Yeah, maybe they know that Harris is leaning towards not coming back, or they're going to tell him that. I don't know.
Back. Yeah. I mean, you bring back Andrew Harris, you're pretty much resigning to the fact that he's going to miss time.
Kind of seems like it.
It's getting to that point.
Well, you look at the workload that he has had over the past half decade compared to probably any other running back in the CFL. He ends up,
because the guys that get those workloads aren't in the league anymore.
No, they're not. He turns 35 here in April. He had 239 carries in 2018, 225 carries in 2019. He was over 200 with BC in 15, and he was right just under 200 in 16 and 17 with Winnipeg. And that doesn't include the receptions he's made. In 2019, he had 70 catches, 2017, 105 catches. Like, this guy has been touching the ball a lot.
There's only one way that you can carry the ball that many times.
And you can just read
and it's not naturally. Yeah, I'll say it.
I think that maybe we see a couple of their players end up in the National Football League. We've already seen it with one defensive lineman, Jonathan Kongbo, signed with the Denver Broncos. DeAndre Alford, the all-star rookie cornerback, signed with Atlanta. They've also worked out Kenny the King Lawler. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere. They ended up releasing Drew Desjardins on the offensive line, who's been getting workouts across the NFL. So there could be 4 or 5 players that are off the books just because they went to the mighty National Football League.
Well, I mean, you can't fault the guy.
No,
they're going to make more money on an NFL practice roster than they will, starting in the CFL in some spots. And we also talked about it last episode where with this NFL window and the chance of guys being able to go down there, it's something else to compete with, not just other teams when it comes to free agency and re-signing your guys. So it's going to be the GMs that are they're the best able to negotiate that window and that opportunity.
I wonder if backup quarterback is a position of consideration for the Bombers. We saw how it went when they had to put the backup in last season. It didn't go well. Collaros.
You can bring in a backup quarterback, but it doesn't get any reps. It's not going to help you.
Well, it almost won the Ticats the Grey Cup. Close, but no cigar. But it became very valuable on the biggest day of the year in the CFL. Like, are you done considering that Collaros is one hit away from being done?
He doesn't get hit with that offensive line.
He could. A couple more games against Hamilton, and you know who.
Hey. I have been told to tone down the Hamilton hate.
And then I brought it back.
And then you bring it back. So this wasn't me, but I will agree.
I deeply and sincerely apologize for that.
No, you don't.
Hey, we saw what happened to both Michael Riley and Bo Mitchell when they got the massive contracts.
That was going to be my next thing. Is like you're now the highest paid player. Well, that's going to affect what everybody else is getting paid. But at the same time, if they give Collaros that money and they pay the money, they spread the money out, to the other guys. But I mean, if they can focus on keeping him healthy with that offensive line, you can pay a little less, and that's where, not re-signing Andrew Harris comes in. They can pay less at that running back position. They might be able to find some deals wide receiver-wise where, they're not going to be reliant on a 6-game stint for somebody to be under the cap.
The reason I ask is because there's been rumblings that Chris Streveler might return to the Canadian Football League. He's still getting workouts in the NFL, I think most recently with the New York Jets.
Oh, my God. Please let that happen.
But I think that I wonder if he would he command starter money? I think he would command more than what your normal backup would get paid.
You're gonna pay him as much as you pay Nick Arbuckle? Because what's Arbuckle making? Just south of $300,000? There's no chance.
Is that the
you can't?
Is that the bargain bin Ottawa quarterback, $150,000 Chris Strickler?
If you're going to do that, you might as well bring back you-know-who and make him your starter. Don't make me say it.
Nichols or Davis? Which one?
Yes.
Davis, by the way, already released by Ottawa. They have made a few signings. Jacob Ruby, he was surrounded in controversy by his own doing, we'll say, when he was in Edmonton. And Nate Bahar re-signed in Ottawa, but there's going to be some changes there, mainly at quarterback. And there are some pending free agents still around at quarterback. The aforementioned Chris Strickler, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Jeremiah Mazzoli. One of those guys end up being the starter quarterback for Ottawa in a few months here.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. I don't see Mazzoli going back to there's no way now. McLeod Bethel-Thompson's going to get screwed around by Toronto and re-signed and then cut, I'm sure, twice before the season starts. Does he want to go through that again? Or I mean, if you're McLeod Bethel-Thompson and his team, like his agent and whatever, you want to stay in Toronto. You don't want to go to Ottawa. You hosted a playoff game. You're starting to build that. That consistency as a franchise. You don't want to leave that and go to an absolute dumpster fire right now.
Yeah.
They can't be as bad as they were last year, but you never know. So I think he stays put. I think it's Mazzoli that goes because they'll be able to pay him.
It's just a matter, they've got a new GM at the helm with Sean Burke. Is he going to be able to open up the purse strings a little bit more than what Marcel Desjardins was allegedly not allowed to?
If Osage wants to win, they're going to have to.
Yeah. Look what Toronto did. They made all the signings, and they didn't quite make it to the Grey Cup, but it worked. First in the division and hosting the East Final. McLeod Bethel-Thompson probably has to work on the touchdown-to-interception ratio. 12 versus 11 in 2021, but in 2019, 26 versus 13. Obviously, a lot better.
It can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. We got to talk about BC. They
called it.
You did. Both on text message and I think out loud on the podcast you have mentioned whether Riley was going to return, and reading articles, there were questions about this going back to November when Riley wasn't even at the end of season press conference, which was kind of
very
weird.
Telling.
Kind of weird for a starting quarterback, and
even just weird for Michael Riley.
Yeah. Tough last year for him. Tough few years, I think, in BC. And I don't think it's kind of went the way that obviously he thought it was going to go. He ended up getting
the hell beat out of him,
especially at his age. Like you got to think. Like now, I'm only a few years younger than him.
Oh.
Every time I get hurt, or hit or fall or whatever, it hurts for 3 times as long as when I was young.
Yeah, like I put my back out playing video games. Like I couldn't imagine getting hit by a 300-pound defensive lineman.
So I think the hits piled up, and then tragically lost his mother, and it just piles up for you. And some things are bigger than football. Not many, but some things are, Ty.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the rate or the direction that team was going. I mean, if he sticks around, I don't know how much better they get just because of the money he was making. So, like, do you want to show up to work every day, get the hell beat out of you, and win 6 games?
Makes sense.
And what the family stuff, like you said, with his mom passing and all that stuff, like it's just he knows when it's best time for him to walk away, and I think that the writing was kind of on the wall that it was probably going to be not a fun year, and if you're not having fun, that's when a lot of guys know it's time to walk away, and the body can only take so much. It's a lot of money to walk away from, but I mean I can't fault him one bit.
Well, and he powered through injury all 2021. That elbow, I don't.
His whole career, really.
Yeah, that's true. And the elbow was never right. He just turned 37 this past week. Mm-hmm. And Ty, I'm comfortable calling him a Hall of Famer. Are you?
100%. That might be recency bias. I don't know, but
right. But at the same time, maybe our standards do need to change a little bit as well. But 2016, 17, 18 games played, all 3 years, over 5,000 yards.
Keith Yandel of the CFL.
Yeah, 88 touchdowns in those 3 years. In 2015, winning the Grey Cup with Edmonton. Mm-hmm. That was special. He only played 10 games, but got hurt at the beginning of the year, comes back around Labor Day, and they never lose again. And
it was a crazy run.
I remember being in Winnipeg for that, and everybody on the team being loose and having fun, and the focus and how much
fun was that walkthrough?
It was awesome.
It was colder than hell, but like you just felt like after that, like this is a team.
Yeah, and
he was in the middle of it.
I'll be honest, that was the first Chris Jones-led practice I ever attended, and it was a lot different than what I expected.
It's probably the last, too.
Yeah. A lot different. But Mike Riley was a lot different than the rest of the team. The focus he showed, and I think he's a classy guy. This was the Grey Cup in Edmonton, 2018, and
I had already gone home.
You were long home, and this is.
I think was that the Ambien night.
Yeah, it was.
That might have been. Definitely was.
About 2:30 in the morning after the Spirit of Edmonton, I'm in the hotel lobby. It must have been after the player awards. Riley walks in to the lobby.
With Odell.
Yeah, with Odell. And I'm just shooting the breeze with some Bomber fans, and we all asked him for a picture. Odell didn't want to be in it because Odell was in BC, and he was tampering to get Riley to BC.
Yeah, it was pretty clear.
So Odell took the person's phone.
But yet Lucky Whitehead goes to a playoff game in Winnipeg.
Well, that's got to be mentioned. The Lions extend Lucky Whitehead, so maybe that wasn't a big deal with him wearing the toque.
Maybe not. Still wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah.
If I was BC.
We might see a different receiving core in BC. Brian Burnham has, as of this time, not been re-signed. Lucky Whitehead given some cash. The highest paid receiver in the CFL. We've got Brian Burnham turning 32 here this spring. But, man.
And that seems young to me. Like it feels like Burnham's been around forever.
It kind of does. In 2016, 1,392 yards. 2017, 1,202 yards. 2018, 1,029 yards. 2019, 1,492 yards. This past year, he was 35 yards short of 1,000 yards in a shortened season.
In 14 games.
Yeah. He averages over 15 yards a catch in his CFL career. I think he deserves money. It'll be interesting to see if he sticks around in BC, but you got to think with Riley retiring, Lamar Durant released, the expensive Canadian, maybe they got money there to pay Burnham.
You know, I don't know what Rourke's contract is, but he's not making starter money yet. So they can put a team around him, and that could be their window with Rourke being young and cheap. They might have to take a run because, you know, if he turns out to be like a bona fide number one guy and like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, I'm not saying, you know, one of the 9 best, I'm saying like top 4, top 3, they're going to end up having to pay him, and they're going to not be able to put the guys around him that they are able to, you know, this year and maybe next. Like, I know it sounds like a quick turnaround, but with the money there, it's a lot easier.
You have to think the Lions are probably a team that are in the market for another quarterback with some experience.
But I think that they said Rourke is their 1A.
They basically have, yeah. Which is kind of funny. you see how Rick Campbell handles that situation versus Chris Jones, who's making no promises.
Already restructured Arbuckle. Like,
yeah. You're going to earn it.
Mm-hmm. It's like, then what'd you pay? What'd they pay me this money for?
Yeah.
I got to earn it. It's like me at work. What do you mean I got to work?
Hey, if you look at BC's coaching staff too, they got some good defenders there. As John Bowman, the legend from Montreal, signed on in their defensive line coach. He knows a thing or two about playing D-line.
A little bit.
Yeah,
he might be able to actually help the offensive line.
Yeah, yeah, he'd still be able to do some drills, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Also, like touching on that, Mike Riley asking about the Hall of Fame. He's so good with the media, which I think is going to have a huge influence.
Yeah,
on him
the
getting
voters
in
will
quickly.
Say, hey, this guy, we love talking to this guy, and he makes my job easy. So, yeah, get him in the hall.
Yeah, it'll be quick once he's eligible.
Let's go back to the Prairies, where the Riders have made some signings. A.C. Leonard, 2-year deal, the sack leader from 2021. On the defensive line, Charbel DeBeer. That guy, they've got some monster defensive linemen there. Offensive line, they've extended Taron Vaughn, who ended up missing last season with the shoulder injury, and Ty Rogers is coming to Saskatchewan. Mike Edam re-signed in Saskatchewan, and this is cool. Jacob Dearborn's actually going to be in Beijing for the Olympics. What are those, next week? He's going to be doing the whole bobsled thing. Takes a special person to fly down a ice track in one of those things.
It's a lot better than...
That's true.
Skeleton.
That's true. You're, I guess, a little bit more protected. I guess.
Yeah, you just duck.
Jamal Morrow is sticking around in Saskatchewan. Kyron Moore probably not. Well, not going to be ready for the beginning of the year with that knee injury that happened to him late in the season. And they have re-signed Shaq Evans. There are a couple question marks that I have about the Riders. I'm wondering about Duke Williams. Kyron Moore not going to be ready to start the year.
How do you not re-sign Duke just based on the onside kicks? Solely based on the onside kicks? Like, what are we doing?
He might be waiting to see this whole negotiation window for free agency starts this weekend. Maybe he wants to see what he can make. Maybe he wants to go play back with his buddy Jones in Edmonton. I don't know. Well, he never did play with Jones, but... maybe there are some opportunities in Edmonton to be back in his old stomping grounds. But with Kyron Moore not ready to start the season, Shaq Evans struggling to end 2021, I think a lot of fans think Duke's a significant signing for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Big body, makes plays. He showed that, in the last bit of the 2021 season. And like you said, there's holes right now with injuries and guys not going to be ready. So the Riders have to look at that and be like, we need not necessarily throw all the money at them, but they need to be willing to, negotiate. And they might have to overpay to get some guys in, but because they know, with a guy like Fajardo, who's only going to get more expensive, probably unless, I don't know if it was kind of a sophomore thing this year or what it was, a little bit of a backwards, but I don't see him crapping the bed and becoming an also ran. So you got to think he's going to get more expensive at some point. Guys like Shaq Evans, you've got them now. I mean, your window only lasts for so long, and they got to be willing to pay some guys to come in because they're going to have holes. And team especially in that West Division. If you got weaknesses, teams are going to pick those out real quick, and you're going to be digging yourself a hole early on in the season and not be able to get out of it.
I do like Mike Edam being back. He was injured for half of the year last year, the Canadian playing safety. But, look, I don't know if this is Luchez Purifoy's real Twitter account, but, and I quote, "I know my worth. Don't play with me when it comes to this." Especially when I'm the most versatile defensive back in the league. I don't know if that means the writing is on the wall for Purifoy in Regina, but I'd say he's one of the most valuable players on that team over the past couple seasons. He can return kicks. He plays just about every position on the defense. I think it would be a big loss if they couldn't get him back.
Yeah, it'd be a huge loss for that defense. Like, playmaker, like you said, very versatile. Played safety, played defensive half, can play the corner. And if there's one thing we know about Florida Gators is that you don't mess with them because you will get messed up. And they can cover up. They can cover up a lot of bad stuff. Like, I wouldn't push Purifoy too far if you're the Riders. Pay them. Just pay them.
Yeah, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hamilton a little bit. Who, they did decide. It appears to go with Dane Evans at quarterback, and they've been able to re-sign some pretty valuable players in Chris Van Zyl and Brandon Revenberg on the offensive line, Tunde Adeleke in the secondary, one of the best DBs in the CFL, Canadian or not. It does help that he's got that Canadian passport. Poppy White re-upped in Hamilton. And rumors that Delvin Breaux could be making a CFL comeback, one of the best shutdown corners in the league over the past little while here. 32 years old, didn't play in 2021. Who knows if he'll be back with Hamilton, but that could be a big addition to the defense if he's still playing up to his standard.
Yep. Yeah, if he's the Delvin Breaux we saw in 2019, or is it 2018?
Oh, any year that he played in the CFL.
Yeah, really, any year. If he is the same Delvin Breaux, then no matter who gets him, they're going to be getting a hell of a player.
Yeah, he's got NFL talent and kind of mishandled in the NFL where the guy's, kind of playing, break his neck and they didn't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played 4 seasons in Hamilton, 18, 19, 14, and 13. That little break there between 14 and 18 were spent in the NFL before coming back to play for the Cats. Montreal ends up making some signings. Receiver Dante Absher and defensive lineman Nick Usher. Also Mario Alford, who has the potential, I think, to be the best return man in the CFL. And that ended up being a big loss, I think, for them when he ended up getting hurt last year because it ended up being kind of a rotating door at return.
Keystone Cops.
Yeah. When they couldn't have a solid return man, it just was not going well for Montreal.
And of course, and that gets exacerbated by Vernon Adams Jr. Getting hurt.
Yep.
And it just all snowballs.
How about Calgary, who, if you notice the sort of pattern here with what the Stamps are doing, they're keeping the trenches intact. Mike Rose and Derek Wigan on the defensive line, Ryan Skeevier, Sean McEwen, Zach Williams on the offensive line, and they also bring back the bone crusher, Derek Dennis, to the offensive line. I just love talking about this guy, not only because he was out 2-and-out live 2 in Calgary, eating brisket on the stage with me, but a guy that is passionate.
Pulls no punches.
Exactly. And he looks good in red and white, and I'm hoping that the Horseman Radio folks get him on again because he says what he thinks.
He's a guy, and I know there are a lot of people that I'm going to mention this podcast and they're going to be pissed off, but I really don't care. Spit and Chicklets, when they get guys on that are retired and they're not in the league anymore, the stories are way better.
It is. When they're playing, it's nothing. It's
right. You can't go too far. You can ask about their college stuff and junior and what happened there, but you can't get anything about the guys. You can't get a lot about guys they've played with and that kind of stuff. When Dennis is done, I feel like we need to reach out, and it could be like a 4-part series.
Yeah, he says a lot now. Never mind retired Dennis.
I want to know everything.
They've also been able to bring back Rene Paredes. I think there was a lot of questions around him if he was going to return as a kicker for the Stamps. Rough end in the West semifinal for him. I'm sure he's going to want to get a few of those kicks back. Absolutely.
He's got to get his average back up before he retires.
Yeah, exactly. And receiver Kamar Jordan. Yeah, if he gets
that's a big keep.
If he gets to play with Bo Mitchell again, you know what is crazy, Ty? He's never had a 1,000-yard season.
Because he gets hurt.
Yeah, he's never played over 11 games. In 2018, he played 10 games and had 944 yards, and that was that catastrophic injury in the middle of the year. And the fact he was able to come back and play the way he did last year was amazing. And I hope he's healthy in 2022 and he can get that 1,000-yard season and more, obviously.
He's so fun to watch. Yeah. So fun to watch. And him and Bo have such good chemistry. Like, if he stays healthy, I think it's no question that he can get up around 1,600 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. Stampeders East, the Argos, end up re-signing Boris Beatty, Davaris Daniels, and Enoch Mwamba. Yeah, that's a big one. Linebacking core, Dexter McCoyle. He's another player that ends up retiring. That's another member of that 2015 Grey Cup team in Edmonton. They also end up signing quarterback Austin Simmons. He was the quarterback that ended up playing after Chris Streveler at South Dakota. So we're kind of moving through the lineage of quarterbacks here. He's 25 years old, and who is going to be the starting quarterback in Toronto? Nobody knows. I think it would be
nobody knows because they're going to sign somebody and cut them and have to sign them back when somebody else gets. It's going to be a schmozzle. But maybe Jim Barker doesn't let that happen now. Maybe he'll have a little bit of pull in that front office.
Yes, Jim Barker is in the front office. I guess we can say again in Toronto.
It's kind of a loss, I think, for TSN.
Well, I don't think Barker's going to be fighting fans after games against Hamilton at BMO Field. I think that's safe to say.
I hope he does. But
if Barker's throwing
I have a feeling like he would not. Oh man, he could do some damage, I'm sure. But now that TSN panel has David Sanchez, who's just going to be able to talk over Kate and everybody else, and nobody there to rein him in like Jim Barker could. And Jim Barker knows the game, unlike David Sanchez.
You know what? I think when Bone Crusher hangs up the cleats, I would love him on the panel.
Please. Derek Dennis, Mike Riley, and Milt can stay.
That'd be a great panel.
Be a great panel.
Man, we maybe need a defensive voice in there, but I think you're on to something.
Nope.
Speaking of front office personnel, just like Jim Barker, interesting news that Jim Popp named the USFL Director of Player Administration.
Let's just hope his checks don't bounce.
Quick and to the point. That's why I like you.
Everybody's got a reason. It's usually not why they like me, though.
Yeah. Couple more notes on players possibly heading to the NFL. I guess I didn't mention Braden Lenius of the Riders. He signed with Atlanta. Nikola
there goes
Kalinic,
our $2,500 player every week.
I know, that's sad. Nikola Kalinic of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I think the NFL probably likes his size. He is a big player, and the Indianapolis Colts have signed him.
I don't know if you saw what somebody posted on the 2-and-Out story today, but they had a great point.
What does it say?
That now they don't have to try to figure out if Kalinic is listed as a running back or a wide receiver for that week in fantasy.
Well, that's the truth.
And it was me. Oh, sorry. It was if he is listed as a running back who won't play or as a wide receiver who won't play.
Yeah. And Ty, I'm seeing this about 10 minutes ago, tweeted out by OSEG. Devontae Dedmon has been released to pursue NFL opportunities. Usually when they release him, it means that they've basically just got a put the pen to the paper, and he's been one of the most exciting players in the CFL over the past little while. That's a big loss for the Red Blacks.
He was basically the only bright spot they had.
He was the player.
Yeah. You look at what he did this year, and you are naive if you thought he was not going to be getting looks down south. Speed is speed.
There has been some success for CFL returners in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Thigpen stuck down there with Miami for
Stephen Logan.
Yeah, we saw Chris Williams stick around in the NFL for a little while. So Deadman's got a shot. You got to try to hit that guy. I know I couldn't if I tried. I couldn't hit him in a phone booth. Are there any phone booths around anymore?
I know Edgerton has one.
Edgerton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at the calendar here. I believe it's February 8th that free agency officially opens. Teams are going to be able to have a negotiation window starting this weekend. And maybe the 7th we'll release a show, see where we are then, and then a couple of weeks after that, recap some of the signings, and then before you know it, we're getting back.
Before you know it, it'll be spring breakup. I'll be home for 2 months playing video games and golf and putting on all the weight that I'm going to lose from not drinking these next 2 months, and then it'll be time to start football season.
I can't wait. Okay, before we go, NFL playoffs continuing, Ty?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be the matchup in the Super Bowl?
Rams-Chiefs.
Yeah, that seems like the kind of the predictable way to go.
I mean, we did take the Chiefs at plus 925 when Buffalo scored with 13 seconds left on Sunday. It was only for $20, but I mean, it saved us because we had a rough weekend.
I'll be cheering for the Bengals. Not watching, but
get out. There is no team in the NFL that I hate more than the Cincinnati Bengals.
Really?
Really, really.
Oh, I guess I thought it would be the Ravens, if I had to guess.
No, because the Ravens just suck now. I mean, they didn't have Vontaze Burfict to ruin seasons for me. So,
okay.
Cincinnati's just like that little brother that thinks they're good, and then in 2 years they'll be dog crap again. Like, just shut up, go home.
This episode of Two and Out brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering electricity, natural gas, and internet with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose who to buy your internet, electricity, natural gas from. So Park Power has low overhead, which in turn allows them to offer low competitive rates. Reach out for a no obligations comparison by emailing estimates at parkpower.ca. If you decide to switch, it's real easy. It's really just a change to your billing, and you can feel good knowing you're helping give back to our communities with your utilities bills. Learn more about that at parkpower.ca. All right. What's the saying? Diesel up, hammer down. Let's drive to Ottawa.
I feel sorry for the people who get stuck behind them at Kenora.
Have fun. Stay safe.
Have fun doing 90 kilometers an hour with no passing lanes.
I can't believe I mentioned it, but take care.
Why do you do this?
Hopefully this gives you some content on the highway. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.